to keep...
When we dream about our own death.
What, darling?
When we dream about our own
Oh,
death.
you have dreams about your death?
Yes.
Oh, how interesting. I've never had a dream about my death yet.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? You have a dream about your death? Do you?
So
No.
What is significant?
Well, what do you mean, like, what talk
You
about
see
it?
yourself dead.
Tell us, say more, unless you don't want to talk about it. Say more, Renuka. You have it so often, you just think it's normal.
I have seen...
You mean you see a dead body lying on a bed? What do you mean? What do you mean?
I've experienced my own death several times in my dreams. Like I've died in different ways.
I have no idea. You ever had that? I've never had that. Has anybody had that?
So, dying in your dreams, what does it say?
I have no idea. You're the unique person. You're the one who's experiencing it. You just probably thought it was normal. I've never had that happen. I've no idea. So, but it's hard to know until you say a bit more. Is it frightening? Is it blissful? Is it clear? Is it vague? Tell me more. So, and now that you brought it up.
One is just a witness of that.
Huh?
One is a witness of one's death.
So you got to say more, Renuka. You got to explain it more.
You just see your own
So you mean you see yourself on a bed? Is that what you're meaning? What do you mean by see yourself dead? What do you mean, darling?
For example, once I saw myself, drowning, I died.
Oh, okay, go on then.
Once I saw myself being shot, I died. So...
Okay, so there could be so many things. I mean, if we think about the Buddha's view of the mind is so fascinating, actually, which is again coming from the amazing Indians, these Hindus. The Buddha's point that I find really fascinating is there's not a millisecond of anything we've ever seen or experienced through our senses that goes astray. Remember, Keshitachi in London said, it is like every second of the day we're taking photos all day and everything is stored in our consciousness. That's why we can get clairvoyance. That's why literally as we progress spiritually and we remove the grosser levels of our delusions, we literally uncover our memory. That's literally what they say in Buddhism, whereas in the modern world, clairvoyance is this hippy, trippy, weird thing. But everything's stored in there. And because our dream, Renuka, is our subtle consciousness, we take the Vajrayana model, we've got the gross consciousness, which is day-to-day life. And we can see, I mean, we take it for granted at the gross level when we're living through the conceptuality and the sensory that, you know, even a half an hour after waking up, if someone asked you to account for every second of what you thought and did in that 30 minutes, we'd be miserable failures. We don't remember 99% of even one day, not to mention earlier in this life, not to mention a past life, because gross consciousness doesn't have the capability. Conceptuality is actually profoundly limited in its capacity for cognition, but we just think it's all there is, you see, because of our modern world. Whereas subtle consciousness, that's a technical term, that's when your gross consciousness has ceased, when you've gone to sleep, or when you die, when you stop breathing, your subtle consciousness kicks in, and that's the dream mind. Now, that is all I know is the subtle consciousness is more subtle. It's more sensitive and more capable. For most of us, it's just weird because it's visions of things. It's from imprints in our mind, from past memories. And of course, it seems like maybe they're memories of past lives. That's all. That could be if you see vividly different scenarios. It could be just an imprint in your mind of a past death. That's what clairvoyance is, Renuka. Many people in their dreams vividly see things coming, can predict all the time. That's just the capability of our subtle mind. That's all. Do you understand? That's all I can think it is. Must be past life in memories from what you just said. I'm not saying definitely. I remember one interesting experience recently. I remember on YouTube, this one young American woman who seemed a very sweet lady, young, and her mummy left her when she was very little, and she had to take care of the children and the daddy, and she always seemed depressed throughout her life. Very sweet, not angry, but sad. And then she got married, had babies, and then she finally tried to kill herself. She's always depressed. But this fascinating experience she had, it blew my mind. And this is, you hear this type of thing, which fits with this model that the Buddhism is using. She obviously came out of her life, she didn't die, but she had this crystal clear memory, she said, of every major event in her life, starting from the second of her own birth, like crystal clear. That's the capability of our subtle consciousness, which is, it is clairvoyance. But the extra bonus for me, which blew my mind, she remembered everything from the point of view of the other person, which is like total empathy. So she came out of the experience like this blissful girl, you know, want to serve God and everything. So, but that's what our mind is. Nothing has gone astray. Everything's stored there. And of course in our dreams, because we're not so clear, it's a kind of this strange, rambling experience, and it seems so random, you know. But the subtle consciousness and the yogis, when they meditate, can go there at will and use it to get really powerful realizations because it's more capable. And like in Dharamsala just now, you hear often, His Holiness, you hear often the Lamas would say a practice to do at night. When you go to sleep, you make a decision before you go to sleep to see your dreams as dreams, which means be conscious that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. And then as His Holiness said, but then do that, and if you do that, then try to meditate on emptiness. Because your mind is so much more powerful at the subtle level. And if you, that's what the yogis can, they utilize it to get realizations. So it's a marvelous thing to try and do. Not just wake up and remember your dream, but as you're dreaming, you know you're dreaming, and you use that mind to practice. He says, don't forget to meditate on emptiness. It was wonderful. Because your subtle mind is more powerful. It's clairvoyance. All the memories are there from countless lives, Rebecca. And as we progress, we remove all the obstacles and we literally get clairvoyance. We've had clairvoyance countless lives, Buddha says. Do you understand? I would suggest it's that. Don't you think? Would you agree? Does that make sense?
Maybe.
Okay. Yes?
I'd appreciate your suggestion on a practical question.
Yep.
If one comes from a tradition, a culture, or a religion where after the person stops breathing, they are supposed to be buried or whatever
I understand.
Before the next Sunday.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay.
That's right.
And yet you would love to be able to follow along. What do you do?
Well, that's the trouble. I mean, we're going to go into this as we go along throughout the week. There are these different scenarios, what to do when your loved one dies at home, what to do if your loved one dies in hospital, what to do if your loved one dies suddenly. We'll go through these. And of course, the classic one in this tradition of Buddhism is that the ideal scenario is to keep the body for 3 days for the practical reason that when you stop breathing, you're not dead yet. Your subtle consciousness has kicked in. And it could be, it's been the experience of the great meditators that it can take 3 days. Now, the fact is, even if it's not religious, it's common, if your loved one dies in a hospital, unless you're paying the rent in the hospital, they're not going to give you 3 days. No way, you know. So you've only got half an hour if you're lucky. So it's not an easy one. So there are things to do, and I think if you're going to come back to more teachings, we're going to go through all this, what to do, the things to do to make sure you know the mind has left the body. You can do things to help the mind leave the body. We'll discuss all this as time goes by. Yeah. Yes.
So the first point that death is definite.
Yes.
It's a very practical way of looking at things that whenever I read newspaper or whatever, I see this will happen to
That's
me.
Exactly right. Instant, right there.
Right. For the second point, what could be such practical suggestions? Like death is uncertain.
You've got to take, the time of death is uncertain, meaning is, you don't know when you're going to die, which means you could die. I mean, this is the logic. This is the logic. Do you accept that you don't know when you're going to die? Do you accept that as a truth?
Sorry?
Do you accept the truth you don't know when you will die?
Yes.
Now, of course, if you're going to plan to kill yourself, like in a minute, you could say you're certain about your death. About then. Even in 5 minutes, you still could die before the 5 minutes is up. So you can really only say you're definitely going to die when you're going to kill yourself, like about now. Okay, assuming we're not going to kill ourselves, the logic is a really simple thing. Do we know with certainty when we're going to die? Any one of us. Now, say if you've got cancer, you might be told you've got 2 years. But you know that you can get better, like my friend who was told he was dying and he didn't die. So that's what I'm trying to say, even knowing that with certainty, even if you're told you've got a year, it could be before now, it could be a week, it could be a day, still there's no certainty exactly when you'll die. So it is logical then to deduce that because I don't know, this is logic now, although we don't like it, it's logic that if I don't know when I will die, that it's possible I could die today. Would you say that's a logical deduction? Would you say that?
Yes.
Well then, think that please. And try and get used to it. So then the point is, if it's possible you'll die today, taking the third point, the only thing that's going to help you at that time, which could be today, that means you're going to instantly practice virtue. Right there. There's the answer. That's the conclusion. Just to say I could die today, then you go, then what? Who cares? The point is the third point, the conclusion, what's important. You see my point?
Right.
That's the point. That means, do I want to die with negative karmic seeds in my mind? No, because I don't want future suffering. Do I want to die with virtuous seeds in my mind? Yes, because I want happiness. That's the conclusion. You've got to get the second one to lead you to the third. Can you see that point?
Right.
That's the thinking. It's practical thinking. It's not cosmic. It's just that we don't want to think it because it just sounds so remote. because we don't believe we're going to die, you know. That's my point. So we've got to get used to it. So you've got to use tricky things for your mind, tricky ways of thinking about it. But that's the bottom line. That's the real one. But the thing is, like, you know, when let's say you've come from somewhere to get here. Maybe you've driven an hour, maybe you've driven 10 minutes, I don't know. But you think about this. I try to use this example for myself. The second you go outside, assuming you've got a car, the moment you get into that car, there's a very vivid feeling of driving towards home, isn't there? You understand what I'm saying? And each second each second you're driving along, there's a feeling of moving away from Tushita towards home, isn't there? And it's quite a vivid feeling we have. We know what 30 minutes feels like. We've got to, if it's 3 hours to get home, you're not expecting to get there in 30 minutes. So you adjust yourself for that 3 hours. There's a real vivid feeling of moving forward and getting towards somewhere, isn't there? That's natural. Now look at how we live our life. Every morning we wake up, you don't feel you're a day closer to death, do you? It sounds a bit depressing. We don't have any feeling of getting closer to death. We wake up as the same person as we woke up yesterday. Even though you look in the mirror, you know you're not the same person. You're double chins and old and grey hair now. But the feeling we have of being I is this lump of stuff that's really solid, really permanent, unchanging, and there's no vivid feeling of moving towards death. So that's another way to think about it. The feeling of moving towards something is so vivid, but not when it comes to our sense of I. It's just this lump of me that's exactly the same person that wakes up today as woke up yesterday. There's no sense of one day less of life and one day closer to death. That words are they're literally true, but we don't feel it. Try to say it and feel it. One day, every time I go to bed now, you know. Since this book, I like joke. I've been a Buddhist all these years, and I joke to myself that after working on this book, I think I'm beginning to believe I just might die. Because the delusion is so deep in us. It blows my mind how deep it is. I mean, forget about realizing emptiness, please. Forget about bodhicitta. Just this one is so hard because of the depth of our attachment to our sense of self. It's just fascinating. So we've got to do all these tricks, you know. So every time I go on an aeroplane, I've got a few aeroplanes these days, and an aeroplane really feels more vulnerable than a car somehow because you're floating in the sky, you know. Every time I go on an aeroplane, Renuka and I were talking about this last night, every time I'm on the aeroplane, I make a point of thinking, okay, imagine now they put the warning on, we're going to go down, you know, into the ocean. You hear about this happening all the time. Then I have to mentally check, okay, what have I got? My bag, my things, what am I going to hold on to? No holding on to that, no point. The body, no, I'll try to relax, and I'll try and do my prayers as I go down to the ocean. Every time I do it. So it's a good exercise. Just to remember this, not to make us scared. Well, good scared, yeah, wake up. Then, of course, the point of all this is not just to go on about I might die. The conclusion is the third point. The only reason to think death is definite, time of death is uncertain, is the action point of the third one. At the time I will die, and that's why on an aeroplane, I want my mind to be virtuous, please. That means to me, I want to think of my guru, I want to think of the Buddha, I want to think of those things, and hold on to that to help me. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's it. Which is shocking if you've got a life and you're young, you know, you're younger than me, you've probably got your life now, you've got a profession, have you?
Yes.
Do you have a life? You have family,
yes.
You have things you're looking forward to, things you're planning. Life feels, when we're younger, it feels so delicious and moving forward to something wonderful. We're looking forward to something. So don't worry about that. There's nothing wrong with that. But remember that it could end today. And it's like shocks us into reality. And then it brings things into perspective. Then I'd better make this life worthwhile. Yes, have a wife. Yes, have children. Yes, have fun. But realize it's like a bubble, but then make it beneficial. At least that, make it beneficial, because you lose the wife and the baby and the job when you die, but you won't lose the imprints that you left in your mind from being moral and kind and a good husband and a good person at work. So that's the skill, like we leave the imprint in the mind, and that's what counts. So while we've got the family and the beautiful life and the youth, be happy with it, use it, but practice in the context of virtue. Then when you do die, they're gone, but just seeds are left with you, and that'll carry you on. It's very skillful thinking. To remember that, then we can start to deal with it, you know. Because the third point is the point. What to do at the time, what's useful. It's logical, you know, based on this view in Buddhism. Then it brings you back to focus. Okay, don't get miserable, don't cheat on my partner, don't get angry, don't be greedy, don't cheat, don't lie, don't kill, don't steal. That's the conclusion. Then you live a good life. And then if you last 60 years or one, either way, it's cool. That's the attitude. It's practical. But we've got to remember to think this way, because it's not fear, you know. Understand? And you get the best of both worlds. You have fun and you practice morality. More fun anyway, practicing morality, you know, than practicing immorality. Do you understand? Yes.
I just want to say two things, and
yes.
of course I agree completely
yes.
that, you know, we must practice morality for
yes.
good reasons all
yes.
the time.
Yes.
One is that statistically we are much more likely to die in a car than in an aeroplane.
That's right, I know, that's the joke about it. I know that's why the aeroplane though feels to me more vulnerable. Even though it's true, cars are far more, I know, I agree with you. It's kind of funny, because you feel more down to earth on a road, don't you? It feels more ephemeral and dangerous up in the sky. No, it's true. You're right, I've heard that. It's a very interesting point. Oh, it's true, yes.
The other thing is,
yes.
I read this very interesting line said by Ramana Maharishi.
Yes.
You've heard of him?
No.
Okay. So he's one of these...
yes, wonderful yogis, yes.
But he said that the reason we don't think about death is because the self knows it is going to eternally live, and so there is a comfort that we have deep inside us that we don't worry about death.
Well, that would be a virtuous way, and the Buddhist way of saying, because Buddha doesn't talk about himself, the Buddhist way of saying it is when you do understand about death, there is comfort because you know your consciousness will continue, but the point is you have to make it virtuous, because then the next life will be pleasant. So it's also true. So in other words, there is no reason to fear, which is Lama Zopa's point about look forward to the next life. That's practical, reasonable. Or the Christian who's a Christian who looks forward to being with God. It's true. Whereas the materialist one is so much more fearful because all you've got to look forward to is a black hole. And who wants to fall into a black hole? Absolutely nobody. So there's no choice with a materialist view. You can't look forward to anything. No, it's a good point. I agree. It's skillful means. Anyone else? Say something or ask something? So I think now that we've got 30 more minutes, it seems like it. I mean, 8 o'clock sound about right for people? It's 7:30 now. Is that okay for people? So I keep going or you want to stop? Keep going? Okay. So now I think we go into a bit of detail about karma. Because if we want to, practice, the fundamental practice in Buddhism actually, this is where we have all these cliched ideas about meditating. We visualize practice as closing your eyes and looking holy. No, actual meaning of practice in Buddhism is abiding by the laws of karma. It's very simple. Abiding by the laws of morality. This is what karma means. So let's look at this, because we've got, again, a lot of assumptions about it, you know. So it's very interesting. I have a Jesuit priest friend, you know, these Catholic scholars, a dear friend. And I asked him to please clarify, what is a sin by definition? What determines something's being, as the Buddhists would call it, a negative action? He said, by definition, a sin is doing what God said not to do. Now that's totally reasonable if you have faith in a creator, and which of course is the view. But I think that's our view of what a wrong action is. So in my mother's household, when I was a little girl, and my mummy said, don't do that. Being a little smarty pants, I probably said, why not? Now we know her answer, because I say so. So I think, and this is the Buddhist view philosophically speaking, the view we have now of good and bad is this dualistic view that good is doing what someone said you should do, and bad is doing what someone said you shouldn't do. Do you see my point here? So, and we live our lives like this. So the Buddha would suggest nothing wrong with that, but he would say it's dualistic. He says it's not the real issue. And this is why we have so much attachment to be seen as a good girl, because if I do what Mummy said, I'm not happy just to do it. I want her to praise me. I want to be rewarded, please. I want to be seen to be a good girl. And if I do something naughty, look at us. Mummy didn't see me do it. Oh, I got away with it. Okay, we can't escape from God if we have faith in God, it's true. But this is a dualistic view of morality. And I think from this view, we have all this guilt, and I'm a bad person, and it's judgment, it's reward, it's so heavy. This is not the Buddha's view. As far as the Buddha is concerned, there is no rewarder, there is no punisher, there is no creator, there's no one running the show. There's no one judging. The law of karma for the Buddha is a natural law, and we do it to ourselves. So for the Buddha, then, a negative action has got nothing to do with the fact that he says so. He exhorts us, just like Jesus, just like a good communist, just like your grandmother. He exhorts us, don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat on your partner, don't this and don't that. He exhorts us to do that, just like any good person would. But the difference is not because he says so. This is the massive difference. He says it's a natural law. And the first level of what a negative action is, the most obvious one, is an action that harms another. So you do some research in this room. In 1 minute, we will establish nobody wants to be killed. Nobody wants to be lied to. Mice and dogs don't want to be hurt. Just look at the behaviour. So Buddha takes this as a starting point. And he gets us to at least, he's got a little checklist of like 7 little things. His starting point is a simple instruction as an advisor, like a doctor, not a creator. Don't kill, don't steal, don't cheat on your partner. And then don't lie, don't badmouth behind backs, don't use abusive speech, and don't rabbit on about nothing. 7 little things of the body and speech, very first. So they're things that harm others. So the first level of a negative action for the Buddha is one that harms another. But the crucial point is this. The reason he exhorts us not to do it as an advisor, not a punisher or a rewarder, is because he says, guess what, Robina? They will harm you. In other words, Buddha's fundamental point about karma is not a law, of course, of morality that he laid out and that he is the boss of, that you must obey because he says so, which is our instinct. But he's simply like a wise person who has observed that anyone who does an action that's labelled negative, and we've got to analyse this because it's really important to understand it properly, let us believe it, does a negative action, that leaves a seed in my mind that will ripen in the future as my suffering. This is such a simple concept, but it's something that's quite abstract for us because we're so used to thinking of it as punishment and reward. But it's got nothing to do with it in Buddhist terms. This is quite a subtle point, but it's still the beginning. It's still the beginning of practice. But to really begin to comprehend this for the Buddha, you know, he's not a punisher. He is not. It's not his role. He would even assert, as we're saying, the Buddha's view. And this is where he diverged from the Hindus, these amazing, sophisticated beings who came up with this concept of an Atman, a self, you know. And some sense of, I don't know all the teachings, but some sense of an original source, God, a creator, I mean, something like that. Buddha says no. He suggested that we don't need that kind of extra thing. He's not being rude or anything. And from his own observations, that finally we are the ones who create ourselves from life to life to life to life. There's not a millisecond of anything any sentient being thinks or says or does, including the ants, the dogs, the spirits, any kind of being. We are constantly in the process of producing ourselves. And the deepest suffering we have, and the reason why bodhisattvas have such compassion for all of us, is because we are completely ignorant of this. We don't realize we do things to ourselves. We don't realize that our happiness is the fruit of our own virtue and that our suffering is the fruit of our own non-virtue. We don't realize this. We think everybody else does it to us. So it's really a subtle, interesting point, you know. So if we're going to start practicing, the way you put your money where your mouth is to abide by the laws of karma, which means don't sow negative seeds and try to sow positive ones. Why? Because you want happiness, baby, and you don't want suffering. That's the simple logic of it. That's why they always use the analogy of seeds and fruits. It's a great one. So I like to think that our life is our garden, you know, and we are the creators of it. It's not given to us. It's not we're lucky. We're not unlucky. It's not accidental. It's not random. It's not the product of a creator. There's no vivid plan up there by somebody who's running the show. That's not how Buddha talks. Whatever we experience is the fruit of our past actions. It's something really simple and fundamental, but so hard to get in touch with, you know. And of course, because we read all these nice religious words, we stick it in the sky and make it all mystical, you know. So let's analyse that. So there's a way of presenting our entire life. You look at this, you'll see it. Into 4 ways that our karma from the past is ripening in the present. So the first one is called the fully ripened result. This is all in your notes, by the way. The first one is called the fully ripened result, which is the type of rebirth. So, okay, we are humans, right? So the Buddha would say, I mean, I'm speaking loosely here, that if we did realise how hard we must have worked in past lives in creating morality and generosity in all sorts of ways, and Lama Zopa says probably in the practice, in the context of keeping vows of morality, which I'll go into. As Rinpoche says, being good is not enough. But the power of practicing morality in the context of vows, it's really very marvellous, and we'll go into this. So we must have practiced masses of morality and other things in the context of keeping vows in a spiritual practice, that our past hard work is the cause of our just getting a human body. Just getting a human body, like a miracle. Not like a miracle, but like a miracle, so rare. Then there's the 3 other ways that karma ripens occur in this life. And you listen to it, it's very simple. The next one is called, different terms, but these are the ones I'm using here, actions similar to the cause. Well, action is a term for karma, but never mind here. But it's mainly, all it's referring to is your own personality traits, your tendencies, how you think and feel. Everybody has got a different personality. You can see this. So you can see that Mother Teresa has a nice human body, and so did Mr. Hitler have a nice human body. But there's the difference. The next one is the difference, the personality, the tendencies. Yeah. In other words, your habits. It's a bunch of habits. Karma for the Buddha in this way is a bunch of habits. We come into this life programmed with a bunch of our habits. So look at us. If we, have a habit to lie, a habit to get depressed, a habit to kill, a habit to steal, a habit to get angry, there are a bunch of habits. Now the big thing here is we're not made by our creator, so we can't blame the creator, and we're certainly not made by our parents. And even if we're all religious, we so buy into the Western or the materialist modern scientific view as a default truth. Buddha fundamentally disagrees. For the Buddha, the more and more you study Buddhist teachings, the more bizarre the idea is, the materialist view, that your mother can give you anger, give you jealousy, give you love, give you being good at music, give you being good at football. It's a bizarre idea for the Buddha. All of these are your own tendencies. Now your mummy might also be good at football. Well, that's because she practiced football before. And I'm good at football because I practiced football before. That's all. And we happen to come together as mummy and daughter. She didn't give me the genes to be, because that's what we think in the West, it's all genes in the brain. Buddha doesn't argue we've got genes and brains. They don't discuss genes and brains in Buddhism. They discuss the mind, not physical. It's your tendencies, your habits. Your habits, it's a bunch of habits, It's not a complicated concept. So this is the next way, the second track of karma, I like to call it. Now the third one is interesting. It's simply called experiences, similar to the cause. And basically this is referring to how people's beings, rats and dogs and humans, how they see you and treat you. Everybody on this earth, we're very social beings, aren't we? Animals, humans, look at this. We start with a mummy, a daddy, siblings, aunties, uncles, friends, neighbours, children at school, dogs, cockroaches who, do rude things in your drawer, rats who eat your house. These are sentient beings whom we have strong history with, is the way of putting it from the Buddhist view. There's no random event with the law of karma. You've either got God's law and God has his job, and then you have faith in God and you let God do his job. Perfect view. This is not the view here. The materialist view hasn't got a clue what's going on, with all respect. Don't know why things happen. Buddha's view is very simple. Your own tendencies, guess what? A bunch of your own past habits. A bunch come together. The second one, the third one in this life is the first, tendency is second. The third is how you're seen and treated by others. This is so clear. And now we look into our lives. Everybody has some people who are kind to them. Some animals, humans, creatures, doesn't matter. Some who are mean to us, and most do neither. They're the strangers. We have friends, enemies, and strangers, let's face it. Is it not true? Everybody's like this. Dogs, ants, humans, monkeys, elephants. Everybody has people who are kind to them, people who are mean to them, and people who do neither. They're the strangers. That's the third way that karma ripens. Our experiences. Similar to the cause. The cause created by oneself. So if someone's mean to you, it's because you're mean to them. Have been in the past. Speaking simply. Someone's kind to you, of course it's because you've been kind to them. Someone steals from you because you've stolen. Someone gives you, it's because you've been generous. You get a job and someone gives you credit in the bank, it's because you haven't stolen. Everything that happens to us is the fruit of your past action. I mean, when we really begin to look at this, it's so dynamic. Instead of this feeling, I'm this little kind of permanent little thing that someone plonked on this earth. I've got no idea why I got born. I didn't ask to get born. Life is not my fault. Good things happen. Aren't I lucky? Get more. And bad things happen. How dare you? We live in this constant shock and horror every day. No idea why things happen. And it's not my fault anyway. That's our materialist view, Buddha says, sorry, baby, you created yourself. You've got a human life because of your own virtue. You've got tendencies because you practice them. Things happen to you because you've done it before. You're in charge, baby. You're the gardener. Your life is your garden, and whatever's in it, you grew it. It's so intense. So the conclusion from this, of course, is I better start taking control of this garden. Do I want happiness? Yep. Well, stop sowing weeds, baby. Do I want happiness? Yes. Then sow more flowers. It's so clear because it forces us to take responsibility. The view that I'm not criticising the view of you have faith in God. I used to have faith in God. It's an amazing view. It's a superior view to the other one, which is a nightmare. No one knows why anything happening, not my fault, poor me. At least when you have faith in God, you'll be happy. Like these two Muslim parents. I remember reading the air crash last year, one of those crashes a couple of years ago. Air Asia went down into the ocean, you know. And these two Muslim mummy and daddies in Malaysia, how do you feel about the death of your daughter? We are peaceful. She belongs to God. He has taken her back. How amazing. What a view to live your life like that. Can't complain. But that's not the Buddha's view. You're in charge, baby. We did it. I created it. It's so intense, this view. But this is Buddha's observation. He didn't make this up. He's not a creator. He's not speculating. He's observed this to be true. And even you Hindus, these amazing Hindu yogis have observed this to be true in their clairvoyant mind and in their meditation. This is where it's come from. It's not, it's observation, not created. This massive important point. So this is how you live your life. The fourth one is called, the fourth way our karma ripens is called environmental karma. It's the way the physical world impacts upon us. And all actions we do can have any of these four results. So a simple example, let's say, a simple example of the intentional action of not killing. So you've got a mouse in your kitchen. So there are four conditions in place that have to all be there for that action of you consciously saving the life of a mouse. There are four things that have to be in place for it to qualify as a complete action, which pops a seed into your main bank vault, which becomes one of the seeds that will ripen at the trigger at the time of your death, which will cause you to get a decent human life. Killing is the opposite. Exactly the same conditions though. So in the case of an action of non-killing, four things in place. First, there's got to be a living mass, the object. The next is the role of your mind in that action. And there's three parts there. What 2A, it's called this state of mind. In Buddhist psychology, they've got a category of states of mind that they call neutral, but I like to call them the mechanics of the mind. And there's many of these that are functioning all the time. And we're not talking the brain here, that enable us to even function as a reasonable person, whether you're a good or a bad person. So one is called discrimination. It's happening every second, and an ability to say this is this and this is that, that's square, that's round, that's blue, that's pink, there's that mouse. So recognition, that mouse. 2B is intention, bare bones volition. I will save that mouse. 2C. The second component of the four is your role of your mind. Recognition, 2A. 2B, intention. I will save that mouse. 2C, your motivation. Compassion. 3, you pick up the mouse. 4, you release it. Thank you, Robina. Bye. Happy mouse. That's called a complete action of non-killing. That puts a big fat seed in your fully ripened result bank vaults. It will be one of the seeds that will get triggered at the time of death that will give you a human birth. Just giving a simple example. So conversely, the action of killing is exactly the same. There's the living mouse. Recognition, that is the mouse. Intention, I will kill that mouse. Motivation, I can't stand mice. 3, you kill it. See it going. You kill the mouse. 4, dead mouse. That's a complete action of killing. This is the way karma works. So it's very technical and precise, and we know these things. Now the fact is, the role of your mind in it is the main player. If your mind is missing completely and you don't see the mouse and you stand on it and you don't even know you stand on it and there's a dead mouse, well, number 1 was there, number 3 was there, and number 4 was there. But there's no intention, there's no recognition, there's no motivation, so there's no karma. How can there be? It's not possible. It's the same if you're walking down the street and there's a homeless person. 1, object, homeless person. 2, your mind, recognition. I will give that homeless recognition, that homeless person. 2B, I will give intention. I will give money. 2C, motivation, kindness, compassion. 3, you give the money. 4, he gets it. But what if you're walking down the street and there's a homeless person and $50 falls out of your pocket, but you don't know? Well, 1 is there, the object. 2, recognition, no, because you don't see him. 2B, intention to give money, no, because you don't see him. 3, motivation, no, because you didn't see him. 3 is there, the $50 falls out, and 4, he gets it. So karma has to be your mind involved. So obvious, so clear. You know. This is a simplistic example, but this is breaking it down to its component bits. This is morality. So the practice of morality at this first level is conscious, intentional. I will not kill. I will not steal. I will not lie. I will not this. I will not that. And that protects you from therefore doing those negative things. And it's just not merely, oh, aren't I a good person? I don't kill. No, you're sowing powerful, delicious seeds in your mind. That's the practice of morality. And then you make it even more potent when you do it in the context of vows. Lama Zopa says you can have a person practicing bucket loads of spiritual practice, but not having a vow not to kill. Another person merely keeping their vow not to kill. They're ticking over virtue and morality, virtuous seeds, and purifying their mind 24 hours a day. Such is the power of vows. Because it's only when because if you don't have a vow, we are in this room right now, and we're not killing most likely, but if there's no intention not to kill, and there isn't because there's no sentient being in front of us, unless you want to kill your neighbour, there's no thought not to kill because there's no sentient being to not kill. So we're not creating any virtue at all by not killing. Just being nice is not enough. You've got to intentionally decide, because intention is the meaning of karma. The thought, I will, not the motivation. Intention, volition, I will. As Lama Zopa says, everything exists on the tip of the wish, the thought, I will. This is the meaning of the beginning of the entire process of creating this thing of karma. That's the meaning. It's the mind, intention. Me walking out that door, I promise I will not move until my thought says I will walk out the door. That's the beginning of the process of my legs picking me up. Everything is like this. That's why Lord Buddha says the entire universe is created by the mind. It's a bit abstract to us, but this is what he's saying. So therefore the first level of practice is, don't just not kill because someone says you should, or aren't I a good girl, wait for a reward. That's ridiculous. The very action itself of intentionally refraining from killing out of compassion, that is what programs your mind in virtue. And then actively benefiting others is even better, you know. But this is fundamental law of karma. The first level is refrain from harming. Refrain, control your body and speech. Don't harm others. It's really powerful. Not just being a nice person. It sows dynamic seeds in your mind, you know. Programs your mind. For your own sake. Not for the sake of others yet, for your own sake. This is something we never think of. We almost feel guilty on. That doesn't sound like spiritual practice, but you've got to do it for your own sake first. Then, more advanced, you do it for the sake of others. But this is the beginning of practice, abiding by the laws of karma. It's practical. It's practical for the Buddha. Not punishment, not reward, because we're the boss. This is the fundamental Buddhist teaching. Yeah.
When you see someone is harming another person,
What?
when you see someone is harming another person,
Yep.
then what will be your...
Darling, there's a million scenarios. Compassion is the wish to help, okay? I love this analogy. I always use it. I haven't used it yet, but a bird needs 2 wings, wisdom and compassion. Right now we're looking at the wisdom wing, the nuts and bolts of how to put yourself together. Compassion is on the basis of this. You have the wish to help others because you realise they're suffering as well. So compassion is the wish to help. But honey, that doesn't make you help. It's wisdom to know how to help. So just rushing in with a good heart and you get shot as well, what good is that? So if you have the wisdom to know what to do, then kindly go and do it. And if you don't, I'm sorry, we can't make everything better sometimes. There's nothing much we can do. If you can go to Syria tomorrow and stop the war, please go, baby. I'll pay your airfare. Compassion is seeing the suffering, then the wisdom to know how to help. It's a tricky one. So use your common sense, basically. Do you understand? And if you can help it, wow, fantastic. But often what happens is you see 2 people fighting, let's say, and you intervene. I tell you to back off and mind your own business so they can carry on fighting. Isn't it? So compassion, but then wisdom is the real key. And that's what you get from working on ourselves. Do you understand? Time to finish, I think. Just a bit of food for thought about karma. It's all in your teachings, if you want to study it more. Any more questions before we finish that? Yes. Yes, darling.
just
Yes.
one wonderful.
Yes.
Not harming any other sentient being. Sometimes it is not that simple. Let's say instead of a mouse, if you find a poisonous snake in your house,
of course,
and you have young children,
I understand
other
all these
family
things.
members,
I understand. It all sounds so noble, doesn't it?
and the
Exactly.
intention
That's right.
is to protect the children in
Yeah,
the
I know.
house.
But okay,
So
I know.
what do you do?
Well, darling, life is complicated. We've got to start somewhere, don't we? We've got to start with some principles. Wouldn't you agree? Do you understand my point? We've got to start somewhere with some principles that will begin to determine our actions. Would you think that's not common sense? It's like starting with common, simple botany, but as you get more complicated, botany can get quite complicated, can't it? Are you with me here? So we're starting with the simple principles, aren't we? So we've got to start with the logic of what is karma, what is negative, what is positive, why this, why that. You've got to start with that. But it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect because life is so complicated. It's impossibly difficult. You've got to start somewhere with the wish not to harm any living beings. And the next step, though, your point is, and this is the common reason that people use for harming another creature. That's why this country drops bombs on that country, because you're hurting my people. So I'm going to drop bomb on you to help my people. Well, that's compassion for somebody. That's why we use in medicine, we use trillions of animals and slaughter them for the sake of humans. That's better than nothing, maybe, but it's hardly virtuous. It's called anger. It's called protecting. It's called attachment. If you want to analyse it carefully. So one has to sort of start with the fundamentals and you build it up slowly. And then, like I've said here, you've got to use your wisdom and your common sense to know what to do. It's not that easy, but you've got to start somewhere with some principles. Do you understand? I mean, most of us use this as our basis. So if you harm my baby, I'm going to harm you. And the world even says that's valid. But in the end, the Buddhist view about karma is what's going on in your mind. So if you really were practicing and were an advanced practitioner and you didn't want to pollute your mind with negativity, even if you did have to do something to the snake, you would do it with compassion for the snake, not just for your children. That's a really important point. Do you hear me? Because whatever we do with our mind is the karma we create. So we think it's okay, I'm allowed to be angry with the snake because it's harming my babies, and you'll get off in court if you're not supposed to. You understand? Or if it's a human even. But the Buddhist one is whatever your mind does is the karma you create. So why would you want to have rage at somebody and kill them because you think you're being valid? You're harming your own mind. So when we understand karma at that level, we'll protect our mind from wanting to harm anybody. And then we use our common sense, sweetheart, the best we can. Do you understand? So it's not that tricky, it's not that easy to give simple answers, but start from a basis of wanting to protect your mind. Yes.
Recently somebody very virtuous who leads a very good life and gives to the poor, he asked me, why should I meditate? Why do people say one should meditate?
But what does he mean by meditate? What is his point? See, that's again, I have to ask you your definition of meditation.
Well, he means to sit down and try and be, without thoughts, concentrate.
No reason at all. Why should he? I agree with you. Sounds like, this is not a valid, that's not even a valid reason. That's what we think of as meditation. So if you're going to have a choice between being a very nice person and watching your breath every day, or out there helping others, I think the second one's far better. Because watching your breath every day is not even a virtuous action. It's not, in its nature, it's not even virtue. Lama Zopa says thieves need mindfulness. So we have these cliched misconceptions about the meaning and purpose of meditation. And it's to sit and watch your breath and be mindful in its actual self is not virtue. It can be from masses of attachment to feel better. So it's even then a question of why you're doing it. So if you're doing it in the context of the Buddhist practice, the reason you want to get mindfulness is so that you can practice virtue. That's the reason. There's no other reason. To go with no thoughts is just called ignorance and stupidity. And that's one of the, not saying you're saying this, but one of the commonest misconceptions, certainly in the modern world, in the West, where people just jump onto this one, is because they can't stand the pain. And instead of taking a pill, you think, oh, I heard meditation works. We see it as an alternative to a pill. What you're suggesting, your friend isn't saying that. It's a real misconception, because we can't stand the pain, so we want to make it all go away. That's not the purpose at all. The Buddhist view is the purpose is to see your mind and know what the problems are and get rid of them by working on them every day, So one part of it, the bird needs two wings. The compassion wing is your friend. Moral, virtuous, kind to others. How marvellous. The wisdom wing is understanding the nuts and bolts of what makes us up, what is karma, what's the mind, how to work with it, how to meditate, how to understand delusions. It's a really tricky, immense part of the practice. So doing the two wings is necessary. So if you're going to have a choice, go out and help people, nothing wrong. But long term, Lord Buddha says we've got to have both. and know why we're doing it, why we want to look into our mind, why we want to meditate, do concentration. You understand? So Tommy's doing a good job. Tommy doesn't need you. I think that'll do for tonight. So if there's any use, we've probably all of us, including me, have forgotten 99% of it because we've got, we haven't got good memory, but never mind. It's gone in, so we can glad it's all stored away there. That's at least good, the imprint. So we think, great, we've all been listening, thinking, I have been too, discussing, analysing in our mind these things. So all these marvellous seeds we planted, we delight in this, we rejoice. And we think when these seeds ripen, may we nourish these seeds from this moment forward. And when they do ripen in the development of our marvellous potential, no matter how long it takes, it will be for the sake of others. And then the second little prayer that I'll sing is expressing the wish that this bodhicitta, this amazing aspiration to benefit others, this marvellous thought, may it grow and grow in the hearts of all. Kewadi nyududak lama samge drugyune drowa chikyang malupa dei sala gopashok Jangchod Samchog Rinpoche Ma Kyepanam Kegyuchik Kyepanyam Pa Mepayang Gongne Gongdu Pavasho. All right. Thank you, everybody. See some of you again tomorrow, the next day, the next day.